Let me first wake you all up from your slumber. Probably just after lunch, you all would be feeling like having a nap. And with this kind of audience base, probably it becomes slightly difficult. So, if I ask you one thing, whosoever are there, if I increase the price of some fuel by 40% and say that this particular fuel is quite clean, neat and clean, would you go for it? How many of you? Anybody will go for it? No. So yeah, that is the evident answer, and that is where my presentation is rests upon. So predominantly, I would be talking about. Of course, the topic is quite big. I'm not going to read it out, but yes, topic is synthetic fuels. So from e-fuel, synthetic fuel point of view, why it is having a kind of retarding factor in the present scenario, and how it is going to pan out in the future if we could take some kind of crafted steps in the future. So that's the whole agenda I would be talking about through this presentation. As you can see, I have given the disclaimer. Whatever views are being shared here, those are basically personal in nature. So yes, we would have been hearing since last couple of days how hydrogen is getting the importance. Most of the people are talking about we have about 8 years in order to exhaust the carbon budget, whatever is in hand to the global fraternity as a whole. Second important point people are talking about, that is basically cost of renewable and rest of the associated electricity supply is coming down, so we should leverage it. Perfectly all right, and that is what is garnering the renewed interest and momentum in the green hydrogen space. On the other hand, there are many countries, almost 70% shareholders of the carbon emitting countries have already declared their policies, and hydrogen has been taken as the strategic steps. And many industry alliances of late has started panning out. People have realized that how collaboration and partnerships are important in order to penetrate in this green hydrogen space. Next slide. So there are key drivers, whether it is hype or it's a reality, it is going to happen. So there are predominantly 6 factors which are going to play out, and that gives the confidence that it cannot be taken as myth or hype. It is going to be reality. It's a matter of time. So if you click, so like it is the most important lever even in our own strategy in BPCL, and most of the Fortune 500 companies are taking hydrogen as the net zero main lever. Affordability, of course, because of falling RE and other green hydrogen related technology will bring down affordability as well. Energy security, of course, geopolitical situation is well known to everyone. It insulates from the price volatility, particularly for the fertilizer and chemical sectors. So those are also important factors, even for refineries like us. If natural gas prices, LNG prices goes up, we are bound to increase the prices of the petroleum products. And whatever the infrastructure we have already built in this country or across the globe, that can be repurposed for this purpose. Storage and balancing is another critical piece. Probably we can avoid batteries and we can use hydrogen with overcapacity, and that can be used. So why I'm saying so in this connection to e-fuel is, hydrogen will be required. It's a matter of sourcing. It may come through electrolyzer route. It may come through biofuel route. So hydrogen will definitely has to stay, and how long it will take in order to mature, that's a big question. And Harvard has already done this study on the successful businesses so far has taken the shape. So according to their research, in order to make any business to succeed, it takes about 25 years. However, most of the analysis and research surveys are showing that this particular hydrogen business, if we compare it with the wind power development, it is not going to take more than 11 to 12 years. It will make it half to take the maturity of this particular segment of the business. So we'll start by saying that there are many questions, there are many discussions around, so many questions are coming up. What is important is we need to be agile in terms of whatever the new developments that are going to happen, because as of now, whatever we have, that is half cooked, half baked. We don't have complete visibility to take the final decision about making or committing the investments. But yes, we cannot stay just like that. We need to act by taking into account the various priorities and strategic actions. And that is why whatever strategy we prepare today, that has to be living strategy, not a kind of stagnant strategy. Next slide. So if we look at how much demand that may arise, particularly from the synthetic fuels. So we have done this analysis. We have gone through various prominent analysts. And based on that, even though our mission says that India will reach 5 million ton by 2030, it may not suit to our ears to listen that probably 5 million ton may not be the kind of target that we can achieve. So by 2030, based on the in-depth analysis of various sectors, we have found that if global fraternity by 2030 demands for 19 million ton of green hydrogen, probably India may support by supplying 1.9 based on whatever the projects we have, whatever the kind of capacity we have or commitments we have. Out of that, up to 2030, there is hardly any probability of getting the syn fuel in the fray as a main fuel. Of course, after 2030, means 2035 and onwards, probably we can see a kind of penetration for syn fuels in the country. Why it is so, we will talk about it. But two key points we need to note out here. First one is syn fuels, which is the topic of the day, synthetic fuel. And second part is India's hydrogen story will be scripted by 2030, predominantly because of exports. If that doesn't fructify, it will be very difficult to penetrate. Please, next slide. So this is the kind of analysis. Based on analysis, it is found, and yesterday also you must have heard, today also many people have said that Japan, Korea, Europe, 3 major destinations for exports, and that is where we are going to see a lot of demand emanating. Color is a big misnomer, because Japan, Korea is not targeting any color as far as green, gray, blue, all these things are concerned. Their main concern is affordability. As you said right in the beginning, if fuel is 40% expensive, I'm not going to buy, even though it is giving the carbon solution, because most of the consumers are cost conscious, and they know that there should be a merit in order to buy. If I have better choice, we'll go for that. So that is why Japan, Korea have taken this stand. Europe has come up with the policies like Fit for 55, EU, Europe. So what they are trying to do, they are matching supply and demand. You supply at certain cost, we are going to buy. We will take the demand from the buyer side, and whatever gap is there, they have created a fund of $2.3 billion euros, and that will be required, that will be utilized for funding them. So that is how that particular global gamut is established. Here, India and US, these two are the prominent exporters that is emanating based on the analysis. I'm not going into detail because of the paucity of time. So, previous slide. So on this slide, actually whatever government is trying to do in terms of supply side and demand side, that has been shown. The important point is ports have been undertaken as the greening of the ports, and those would be require a lot of methanol, green methanol, and some fuel which can be called green in the long term. So demand side, government per se is trying to create the ecosystem, and mandates are also going to come up. Probably hydrogen will see the kind of importance over there, and a lot of incentives are also around that. So hydrogen is getting a kind of importance even in Indian ecosystem, and our mission is already talking about the same. Next slide. So why India and US are well positioned in order to supply hydrogen for the synthetic fuel? Because these two are the countries, either they are building up renewable energy, or they have the capacity to hook up with the electrolyzer to produce hydrogen. So that part is evidently coming, and all the resources that is required along the way are available with India and US. Rest of the countries either don't have a skill, don't have manpower or EPC capability or technology capability. That will pose a challenge for them. Next slide. So we have seen that as far as hydrogen supply is concerned, there is no challenge. It may come from electrolyzer side. If biofuel permits from rest of the other sectors, probably that can also be made available. So let's look at from the transport sector, how much demand that is going to come up, whether it is compatible, can we use it directly? So here you can see in all segment of the vehicle, even hard to abate sectors, we can see that synfuels and biomethane, these two are very compatible. And synfuel is one thing which is easily available, no need for infrastructure. There is no need for anything else to be further done in order to get it consumed. So this is the one area we need to focus. But where is the problem? Demand is there, all infrastructure is there, because the moment you talk about electric, the moment you talk about hydrogen fuel cell, the bigger question comes, there is no infrastructure. Here those challenges are not there. Demand is also there. OMCs are ready to take it. Then where is the problem? The problem is predominantly in the cost effectiveness. Actually, whatever the solutions are available in synthetic fuel, those are not actually cost effective. And that is the biggest challenge. So I am not going to define sustainable synthetic fuel, but for the larger understanding, there are e-fuels synonymously used and synthetic biofuel. So those two are the routes. It depends whether it is coming through electrolyzer route, hydrogen, mode of hydrogen, or coming through biomass route. So next slide, there are many different combinations that are possible in terms of technology. And through that, either you can use water for electrolysis, or you can use biomass. That can be either sent through gasification, pyrolysis, or syngas route. And that way you can get the various type of hydrogen. Next slide. So as far as cost competitiveness concerned, if you look at, if we use the traditional fuel, then methanol, natural gas, all these things are falling in the range of about 2.3 to 2.4 US dollar. Whereas the moment you get the green component to the fore, it becomes much expensive. And there is a wide gap which needs to be filled in. Even though government has tried to offset certain portion by 0.6, if we convert that 50 rupees incentive, and electrolyzer incentive 0.04, so overall 0.64 is going to be contributed towards this. 0.15 per kg can come through carbon credits to the major extent, and 1.5 to $2 may come up going forward based on plant size and rest of the other thing. So eventually we can get 0.79 to 2.79 decrease in the feedstock, and that will definitely make it possible to start using it in a big way. But a lot of things, as we said, third particular point is very critical, and that is where a lot of work is required. Next slide. As of now, in e-fuel space, we hardly see much of a commercial level plants. Only 5-6 plants are available, and those are basically in other countries. In India, we have hardly seen any major movement. Even in the hydrogen from the biomass route is still at the very demonstration stage. And other countries are doing, but India, we have not yet taken any big shape. Next slide. Even though we have tried to identify for various kind of e-fuels, synthetic fuels, what are the kind of technologies that can be used and deployed for producing diesel, ATF, gasoline, or compressed gas, or e-methane, or other kind of fuel oil, or other thing. So those can be replaced. Their substitute has been identified. Technology is there. What is still missing is either those technologies are not well developed, or those are not actually taken the shape at the commercial scale. And next chart is basically showing only about the component of hydrogen that would be required in order to produce various fuels. So here is the cost forecast Going forward, as of now, we can see from the traditional fuel and e-fuel, there is a wide gap. Even if we use hydrogen, green hydrogen with DAC, there is high amount of gap. That range is required to be fulfilled, and that gap is not less. It is more than about 1.5, 1.6 dollar. So that kind of thing required to be done, and various components are also shown right next to it. Here the carbon, which will be required to be embedded into production in order to produce e-fuel, that is the biggest thing. And that carbon, if could be priced well, people will start maximizing the use, and that will bring down the cost of this e-fuel as well. So that is one of the primary lever we need to start pressing on and get the things done. Next slide. So here is my final slide. So in order to make it cost competitive, because until unless this fuel becomes the cost competitive, this entire ecosystem will remain unfavorable by anyone. So everywhere we need to look at that. If cost with the incumbent fuel is matching, then solution is there. Otherwise, there is a problem. So that is why we are trying to say that, of course, government has to come up with some kind of renewable transport fuel obligation, like they have already done for biofuel, other biofuel like bioethanol and biodiesel. Similarly, they need to create the fair carbon price mechanism, because until unless that carbon taxation is in vogue on the life cycle, probably that will be difficult. GST is another anomalies, because we get the fuel at GST and blending in non-GST creates a lot of issue in order to pass on the input tax credit, and that is actually very discouraging for the producers to produce, and for the users like us who is going to meet the demand for the customer to use. So that's the kind of challenge. And last but not the least, this partnership and collaboration, that is the mainstay. I have just visited Spain and US. I have found that how people are building the ecosystem. So this is the very important piece. If anybody thinks that they can do all the ecosystem alone, probably it will be very, very challenging. Next slide. Thank you. I leave you with a statement. A company's long-term success depends on how it progresses through the stages of industry consolidation. Speed is everything. We need to start now. Thank you.